Tonight we're going to spotlight 4 schools. And our organization went through the process of looking at not only test scores, but going to the schools and looking at the culture of the schools, looking at whether or not young people's eyes were gleaming, and if they were happy to come to school, and if they were learning. And from our investigation, and we don't consider ourselves the experts, we consider ourselves concerned citizens. We looked at what we saw working, and we want to share that with you. We hope that during the course of this evening's program, you get to understand some of the common themes that all of these schools seem to us to possess.
We looked for 2 types of schools. Schools that are accelerating student achievement, right? So we know that as a district as a city, we've had some challenges. We know that our students have significant ground to make up. So we wanted to know what schools are doing that at a faster rate. And so what we looked at was percent change. The percent change, schools that had at least a 50% change between school years 2008 and 2009 of students performing at basic or above. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we wanted to look at those schools. Are there schools in our community that are really sort of high-flying, that are consistently outperforming the state average and are on a trajectory to really be best practice schools? So we looked at schools that were outperforming the state average. And then we coupled that information with site visits, looking at what we used was correlates of effective practice. And so we went into the schools, we spent time with them, they opened their doors, we went to the classes, we talked to the faculty, we talked to the school leadership, because one thing that I do know is that the data doesn't really tell the entire story. So we really felt like it was very important to visit the schools, to see their practice, to hear their story. So I want to share a little bit with you tonight about the correlates of effective practice. In order for a school to be considered in our analysis, they must have served all grades, all elementary grades. So we did look at I-LEAP and LEAP, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and the school must not have had academic selection criteria. So these 4 schools proudly boast being open enrollment schools in the truest sense of the word. Several researchers, primarily Ronald Edmonds and Larry Lazat, really wanted to respond to schools can have an impact on student achievement. Family economic status is not the only or primary determinant of a student's academic achievement. And so they really started looking at what do effective schools do? So the correlates really emerged out of that body of research. There are several core tenets, and we looked for those tenets when we visited the schools. Strong instructional leadership, it makes sense. You have to have a leader that is a strong instructional leader that really persistently communicates instructional leadership within the school with teachers, that understands curriculum. A clear and focused mission. And a clear and focused mission, it's important that the parents, the school, and the students all are on the same page. But it's more than a sign on a wall. It's really about a philosophy that's embedded into how that school operates. So you can not only see it on the wall, but you can really see it demonstrated in their practice and how they engage their students, their faculty, and their parents. A safe and orderly environment. And I want to spend a minute to talk about this. Often when we see safe, we think about physical safety in a school. That's important. Children have to feel like they're safe. But schools that are really effective are safe schools in the emotional and psychological sense as well. They create a space where students feel safe taking academic chances, that they feel safe taking chances with their peers, and they're also, of course, safe from bullying. A climate of high expectations. And a climate of high expectations, what was interesting as we visited these schools is you rarely heard them say high expectations. It was about what they do. that demonstrated that. So it's more than having a high standard. It's a fundamental belief in the faculty and the staff of that school that every student in that school can reach grade level standard. Frequent monitoring of student progress. They'll be able to tell you that story even better than I can, but that they constantly are examining how students are performing. They have strong relationships with with home, and they find a way to nurture that relationship. These schools all have found a way to work with families and make sure that their families feel welcomed in the school environment. An opportunity to learn and student time on task. Of course, that sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? In order for students to learn, they have to have the time to get it done. But there's also, beneath that opportunity to learn, a real understanding must be demonstrated by the faculty and the leadership of the school of understanding the state's core curriculum beyond a textbook. The textbook is not necessarily the same thing as the curriculum. So how do they afford students a rich opportunity to delve into the curriculum, an opportunity to learn?
All of that's great, but if we don't have people leading the charge at every grade level, it wouldn't do us any good. We're a big school. I can't possibly go in every classroom every day, but these folks do.
It's to achieve academic success for all of our students.
We have clear rules and consequences, and that's communicated by a simple, what we call purple contract. And we give this out in the beginning of the year. We teach it to the children, we send it home, and we revisit it.
All of these measures, you know, some might look at them in a different light, but all of these measures are just instituted to ensure that children are getting what they need, because if they don't get it, then they won't be successful.
And the teachers can get that data right away and adjust instruction. And we expect them to adjust instruction.
We contact parents early, and we said, listen, we need to talk to you. We need to discuss some strategies. We need to ask you for your help, beg you for your forgiveness, and ask you to come on board and help us to help your child.
So we look at curriculum a lot. We look at what should be taught. We look at what is tested, and we look to consolidate things to make it more successful for children.
But the one thing about all these schools, when I walked away, I just felt like I know it's possible. Sometimes we forget, and I really, in that experience, I know it's possible. We can educate every child in this city at high levels.
As changes come, the people at the school level in the past have been jerked around from one focus to another focus. They've never had the opportunity to consistently stay focused on what they want to accomplish to improve the education for their kids. And there has to be a voice at the table for consistency to permit these schools to keep their focus on where they're going, because you can see what happens when they have the autonomy and the authority to do what they know that needs to be done. There has to be a voice to support that. There has to be a voice to deal with the upcoming changes, to see that those things that are providing this kind of growth are continued. And we hope that you all will want to be a part of that.